I learned about geospatial engineering from a classmate in high school. You know, that time in Form 4, we have to decide what career you're going to do after high school. I started presenting my work, but now I got somewhere, I got stuck. I think anxiety got the best of me and I couldn't talk. All I know is that I'd love to own my own GIS form. If you're depending on help and maybe you have to pay your school fees and it has delayed, you can't sit for your exams if you haven't paid your school fees. That leads to students deferring or going a year back. I actually didn't know what it entailed when I was joining until third year there.
Oh my god, my age is showing. Anyway,
One, we are up. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Geo Habari podcast. I'm your host, Yariwo Kitio, and I'm pretty excited about this new episode.
this is another series we're introducing into the pod, and we're actually calling it the student edition, which makes me really excited about this conversation and this series in an effort for the pod to have more diverse voices and diverse stories from across. Then this is very monumental and a very refreshing addition to the pod. And the goal is basically to add students' voices into the podcast. And this is actually our first. And so I'm really excited about this conversation. We're going to have a conversation with, she's called Nollyn, and we're going to talk about basically life as a student and her experience as a student and get to know a lot more about her and her journey. But that's what this episode is about, the very first episode within the student edition series. And before we get into the conversation, I'll have Nollyn introduce herself, and then we'll get into this very exciting conversation. Hi, Nollyn.
Hi everyone. Yeah, my name is Nollyn Perry. I'm a student in JQuat pursuing Bachelor of Science in Geomatics Engineering and Geospatial Information System. Currently, I'm on attachment at KenGen Olkaria.
Thanks, Nollyn, and it's really good to have you. I'm really excited for this episode and welcome. So I think for a start, Nollyn, I know you've briefly told us you're doing geospatial engineering. I think we'll roll it back a bit and talk about how you got into geospatial engineering. What was your entry point, and how did you even decide to do geospatial engineering?
Okay, I learned about geospatial engineering from a classmate in high school. You know, that time in Form 4, we have to decide what career you're going to do after high school. So she was like, "Oh, you love geography so much, so why don't you do geospatial engineering? It can really suit you well." So I was like, "Oh, yeah." So I went and looked into it and I was like, "Yeah, I can actually do geospatial." And that's how I grew my passion into wanting to, do geospatial engineering. And I wanted to study in JQuat because it was the closest to home. I didn't want to go far from home. So I just applied to JQuat. All the courses I wanted to do, I was like, JQuat, JQuat, JQuat. And that's how I landed to do geospatial engineering in JQuat.
Hey, but you guys, your high school was work. Like you were introduced to geospatial engineering in high school. I wish I had that chance. Oh, like, what was that conversation like? And how were you linked to geospatial engineering in high school? Did someone randomly mention it? Or did you intentionally want to get into geography and mapping and you found yourself having that conversation around geography and what's possible?
Okay, first of all, I wanted to do quantity surveying at that time. But then I was having this random conversation with this girl, and she was like, "Quantity surveying? Oh no." And she's like, "Geospatial is way more cooler. Even just listen to the name, geospatial engineering. It just deals with maps and you're already good with geography. People knew I was good in geography, and she's like, I would really recommend you to do geospatial engineering, and that's how I got to know about geospatial engineering.
So fast forward, you've joined campus and you're doing geospatial engineering. What's that journey like? When you were getting in, did you know what that is and the units or what it meant to do geospatial engineering?
Okay, first of all, I knew geospatial engineering was just about making maps. Those maps we used to use in high school when we were doing geography. So it's like in my mind, this is easy. I'm only going to learn one skill, that is making maps. I can do this. But now entering uni, I'm being introduced to units like programming. I wasn't prepared for that. There was a lot of programming languages from, I think, second year, like C, C++, Java. And I'm like, come on, guys, you didn't tell me I was going to do programming. Okay, in second year, I was like, how does this relate to mapping? It didn't make sense at that time. But now in third year, when we started doing remote sensing, we now used a lot of programming in Google Earth Engine. That's when I started appreciating learning programming. Yeah, so I think I actually didn't know what it entailed when I was joining until third year there. Yeah.
Oh wow. And I like what you mentioned, like when you're doing the programming, you're like, what do you mean? And then it starts making sense when they introduce you into Google Earth Engine and linking it to, oh, this is why you're programming. I'm relating to your experience because I did environmental sciences. But the part where you're saying you didn't know what that was until you go to third year was somewhat similar to my experience. I literally didn't know what that was until I got to third year, and literally my interaction with GIS was towards my end of campus, and that was by chance. I didn't interact with it because we had units, but not really the practicality of it. Knowing what you know now, would you have still gone for geomatics engineering? Let me just start with that first.
Okay, I think the programming part would have scared me off, but I think I would still have chosen just spatial engineering because I really liked the name. I'm a just spatial engineer. So just imagine the feeling you get when you tell someone I'm doing just spatial engineering. The first question is, what is that? I've never heard about that course. So you just feel important. So I would still have stuck with just spatial engineering.
Okay. And so now you're into campus, you are in third year, and you're doing all these units. I think the first one would be, do you have favorite units you really connected with and why?
My favorite unit, remote sensing. Of course, it has to be remote sensing and jazz.
I'm picking a lot of like based on like what we're talking about on like you knowing some of the things in third year about the course you're doing. Are there things you think we can do different as we're looking for courses, especially if you're sort of in high school? In hindsight, the things you think you should have researched more on, or do you have such moments, and how would you have approached it now compared to when you were just getting in?
Okay, so I think when I learned about the course, I should have done thorough research about what it truly entailed so that I can be fully prepared on what's coming and I can like start establishing myself better into the geospatial field. I feel like I kind of lost a lot of things during the first and second year because people are going to events like the geospatial events that I didn't even know about.
Yeah.
You get? Yeah, I really feel if I did my research earlier and if I joined the clubs in school around geospatial, like the one Laura Mugeha mentioned, the youth mappers and the ages, the one in JQuat, I think I would have been way far than where I am right now.
I really like that, like the part for networking and knowing what's happening within within your student club or within your resident geospatial clubs that you should be a part of and community. And I like that you brought up Laura's reference on like youth mappers and ages. I think those are really quite instrumental resources. A typical campus student doing a geomatic engineering course, are there challenges that come with it? What are some of the challenges you guys or you personally have experienced or go through as a student?
The first challenge is finance. I think that's the backbone of all challenges that we students face in university. Because for a special student, you have to have a laptop. You can't do some things like GIS without a laptop. It's a necessity. So if you don't have the finance to buy it, so how can you go about it? You see, it starts building up pressure for the student. We usually have practicals, right? You have to go to the lab with your laptop and you have to follow through what the lecturer is teaching you. And if you don't have it, you end up missing a lot, right? So you end up feeling discouraged and stuff. So you have to pressure your parents to like get you a laptop. And for people whose parents can't honestly afford it, they end up start doing side hustles, right? For example, okay, me personally, I started selling some clothes online. I had some, you know, I used to sell, let's say, clothes to, for the ladies and ankle socks now for both the ladies and the men, so that I can just, save some money and help me, meet some of my needs as a student in uni. Yeah, so you find that balancing between studies and your business, it's really hard for someone who started doing it in third year. Third year, there's a lot of things you're doing. The units are demanding, right? That is a really really big challenge for students who are facing financial problems. Another thing is if you're depending on help
Yeah.
and maybe you have to pay your school fees and it has delayed, you can't sit for your exams if you haven't paid your school fees. That leads to students deferring or going a year back so that they can go look for the money and now come pay for their school fees and stuff. So that really really discourages some students. They end up dropping out of school, and that's something I've experienced with some of my the people we started class with. Yeah. Another challenge is, okay, I think in finance, if I'm a student and I'm staying outside, I'm like I'm not staying in the hostels and I have to pay rent, and maybe I don't have the money to pay rent at this particular month. And then I get that my landlord is pressuring me, my house gets locked. That's a lot of stress for a student, by the way, that people don't talk about. And it really, really affects someone's, studying, like how you study. You can't probably study if you have a lot of stress on where will I get rent, where will I sleep tonight, you see. I think that's another big challenge that students face.
Thanks, Nolin, for really breaking that down for us. And even the part where you're saying you need a laptop, actually. There's normally these labs. I don't know. Do you guys have like the desktop set up for in your labs? Is that something that the university has? Ama that doesn't work anymore.
It doesn't work.
So the desktops don't work anymore.
In my time at JQuat, I've not seen them working because we are always advised to come with your laptops.
Those are very relatable. And even the part where you're saying rent, because like I remember when I was in KU, we used to battle it out in applying for accommodation in school. And you know how limited school accommodation is. Like those hostels run out so fast because the ratio of the hostels to student population rate is it's literally it cannot accommodate everyone in school. And so you'd end up trying to figure out where do I live, and you have to figure out where do I live that's close to school, and these rent rates based on accessibility. And so you've also touched on HELB, and it just talks to the importance of education policies and structures that support a thriving environment for students, especially now for Campo, because HELB is now for us guys in Campo. And it just shows like the importance of education policies and structures that to enable students to be able to focus on studies and really not be stressed about, oh, where does my school fees come from, or I applied for help and it's come late. I think I probably need to have someone from education and someone who handles help to just have a conversation around student policies and financial support and structures when it comes from government, and when they've actually committed to it, what does that mean for students. Have you already started doing your NDA project?
Okay, at the moment, now that I'm in fourth year, I've just finished my fourth year and I'll be in fifth year after attachment. We'll be doing our project. Yeah, so at this moment, I'm supposed to be preparing for my project.
That's I like that you brought that up because I know how my university project almost took me out. I was really trying to figure out, like, oh my god, like, okay, what should I focus on? And it's like, you know, those things where you're told in Campor by lecturers, like, just read and identify gaps in research papers, go to the library, look at those papers. And by the time I settled for my final year project, I had really gone through it. I had gone through like several cycles of different projects. As a fifth year student who needs to have a project, are there areas you're looking at that you probably want to start going to the library and looking at papers and researching?
Hey, first of all, I feel like fifth year came a little bit too fast. I can't believe I'll be in my final year. I have to think about my project. I mean, come on, guys. It was just the other day I was joining campus. But anyway, about my project. I'm still thinking. You know, you are told you just go to Google Scholar. You'll find everything you need. So I'm at that moment where I'm trying to figure out what can I do. One thing I know is I want to do a project maybe on GIS and remote sensing. So I think I can start from there. You know, I have an idea, I guess. So yeah, I'll just do proper research, you know, with Google Scholar and stuff so that I can get the perfect project that I won't struggle once I start it.
I want us to go to your internship experience. I think you've said you're working at KenGen Electricity Generating Company. How did you get your internship? When did you start scouting? I know how internship is also something else you really have to figure out early enough, especially if it's the one that's part of the curriculum. What's that like? How did you get into KenGen for a start?
Okay, so one thing I knew after I was finishing my attachment at Kenya Space Agency, I was like, okay, here I've done a lot of GIS. So what's next for me? So I was like, for my next attachment, I'd like to go where they are doing surveying, right? Both surveying and GIS. So in my mind, I was like, I'm going to apply to KenGen. So I knew it as early as I think that was last year. So I just prepared and I was like, just let me just say manifesting, but I really wanted to come to KenGen. So when we were given our letters by the school, I immediately took it to their headquarters at Stima Plaza, and then that's how they placed me at All Career.
You mentioned also Kenya Space Agency. So yeah, the internship experiences and your experiences outside of school. Again, I'm looking at my scenario as an example because I know I didn't have that. When I was in Campo, my internship was not very related to what I was doing in school, and I wish I would have done a GIS internship or a remote sensing internship. Kenya Space Agency, when do they come in? When do you join them? Was it part of the curriculum?
Okay, for us, we usually have one internal attachment and two external attachment. So last year, at a time like this, I was an attaché at Kenya Space Agency. Yeah, I applied. Okay, for them, we just apply via email. You send your documents via email, and then they got back to me. They gave me a phone call, and they're like, "Yo, you know what? Yeah, you can come, you can." They just gave me a reporting date, and I'm like, so I started panicking. Oh, will there be an interview and stuff like that? Because they just called me and I was like, you know what, come to, I don't know, it was in, okay, I can't remember their headquarters. No, Pittman House. They were like, come to Pittman House by 8 a.m. And I was like, that was it. That was all the communication they gave me. So anyway, when I went there, they're like, "You're welcome." They give me an orientation to Kenya Space Agency, and I immediately loved their environment. It was so welcoming for an attaché. Let me say for a student like me who has never been in a organization.
Are there highlights or key or learning points that you think have been really monumental and you are like, oh wow, I'm so happy I learned from that? What are like the key takeaways and the skills you learned from that internship experience, the Kenya Space Agency one?
Self confidence. I'll really emphasize on that. You know why? Because I was given this task by Charles Mwangi, where he was like, just he introduced me to Digital Earth Africa, and he told me you can just go to the platform, learn some few things, and then pick up one of the things that interests you, and then present it to me, right? So me, I went and I did a course on flood mapping. I think the course is water resources and management. I can't really remember, but now I focused on flood mapping around Lake Victoria. So okay, I showed him my work and he was kind of impressed. Let me just say that. He was impressed, and okay, now they were having these stakeholders come to Kenya Space Agency, and they had the workers there, the people working there, they were to present the stuff they were doing, right? And then I was approached and they asked me to present my
Oh
work
wow.
to the stakeholders. I was so nervous. I was telling you, oh my God. Now that I look back to it, I think I wasted an opportunity because anyway, I started presenting my work, but now I got somewhere, I got stuck. I think anxiety got the best of me and I couldn't talk. I just went
Yeah.
quiet. I didn't know what happened. So, and then after that, I had one of the directors there saying, "Okay, she's lacking self-esteem," you know, and I really felt bad because I really had a lot of content to deliver, but I couldn't because I let anxiety get the best of me. So I think that was an opportunity I wasted, I guess. Because I think if I had presented it better, I could have gotten more platform to present my work. So from there, I started building on my self confidence. Right now, I can actually speak in front of people. I can present something I've worked on, and I'm really proud of that. What else I learned at Kenya Space Agency was teamwork. Yeah, there was a lot of teamwork that we were doing. You know me, I usually thought that I'm just a student. What can I offer, right? But these people are really encouraging me. If you have a question, just come and ask us. You want to do this? Just come and ask us. You see, like I just felt worth it. Like they were not looking down on me just because I'm a student. And that's one thing I really loved about Kenya Space Agency. Also, it's the same thing here at KenGen. So basically, when you go out there, just don't have this mindset that I'm just an attaché. There's nothing I can deliver. Actually, there's a lot that you can learn from them and also show them what you've learned in a better way.
And thanks for sharing that story. And I like that you talked briefly about like anxiety, because that's also something I've previously had where you literally freeze.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I've learned through my entire journey is giving myself a lot of grace and
Mm-hmm.
space and opportunity to learn and relearn and unlearn all those things. I really like that you mentioned that, because that's something that's something I have battled with. I still battle with, because like anxiety is something I battle with a lot. And then the other bit is what you've mentioned on you not thinking of yourself as just an attaché. You're more than that, and you can do so much more. I always say, even when I get attachés, and attachés have always amazed me when I'm at work, because attachés come with a very fresh mindset where they do not know your SOPs as a company, they do not know what you do as a company and the workflows. And so most of them give a very refreshing view of things that you had not even thought of. They come in without a thought process or without a box that they need to fix to fit into. And so you'd even look at some of the use cases you managed to do. Most of them were like inception points where an attaché just came in and they're like, see, this one we can do this and this. And it's like, oh wow, why didn't I think of that? Like, yeah, that's really smart. And that's how you disrupt companies and make changes. That connection between what you're doing in school, your school curriculum, and what you've learned and what you're doing at KenGen and at Kenya Space Agency, is there a link between them? Have you seen any interconnection between the two?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, for me, I have seen a lot of connection because I've gone to places where they are actually doing what I have learned. You know, if I went to a place where they don't even know what GIS is, I wouldn't like have the experience of taking my knowledge outside from class. But now at Kenya Space Agency, I did a lot of GIS. I've done GIS in class, so I was like, Kumbe, it's just these things. I've been learning them my whole uni life, right? And now here at KenGen, there's a lot of field work. Probably maybe today we do cadastral survey, tomorrow we are doing like leveling. These are stuff that I have done, right? So I can relate to them 100%. So I'm like, I can really see the connection between my classwork and what I'm doing outside. So that's also another important thing that students should note when they are looking for attachments, they have to make sure the places where they are going, it will coincide with what they do in class, so that they are not, they don't go offline. Okay, I don't know if offline is the right word to use, but yeah, like yeah. Can just say, don't just go anywhere for the sake of going. Just make sure where you're going, you'll come out better. Or when you're going back to school, you'll go back better. Like with hands-on experience with real world situations and stuff like that. Yeah.
Then the last bit, have you thought about what the future looks like? An industry you want to get into, or your career path? Like, have you thought about that, or have a rough idea of what you'd want to do?
Okay, for that, I think I'd like to start my own GIS from, self
Yay!
employment. I'm really, really looking forward to that. Yeah, I don't, yeah, I don't think I have much about the future. All I know is that I'd love to own my own GIS firm.
I like that, and we'll be here cheering you on. I'll also reach out, by the way, when you're doing your project. We want to know the project you will settle for, because you've already told us it will be either a GIS or a remote sensing course. And so yeah, we'll definitely reach out to know the course you'll settle on. And yes, we'll also definitely reach out in several years after now to bring you back on
Okay.
board and talk about your company and what it looks like running a GS company. Definitely cheering you on, Nollyn. Thank you so much for agreeing to be part of this conversation and part of the pod. You've literally sparked an entire series around having student voices on board to just make the conversation really complete and just have their perspective as well into the conversation, which I think is very important. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Come back again and again.
Oh, okay, one thing before I forget about the project. One major challenge is lecturers not approving our projects. Hey, that thing is a really, really big challenge for most students, because most of us end up, not graduating because of our projects. So when you're choosing your projects, just make sure you don't get stuck in the middle. Like, you'll be able to present something that the lecturer will, approve it without, taking you through a lot of corners and
What are the
stuff.
users of the like a project wouldn't be approved in this scenario?
Basically, what you presented and your results, they're not coinciding. Like, you went off topic, and maybe it just doesn't make sense. Yeah. So you really have to make sure what you're doing, maybe it's trying to solve a problem that it's, currently happening. Don't try and solve something that was done in the 1970s, because definitely right now things have changed. There's a lot of, for example, AI, machine learning and stuff. There's different ways of approaching different problems. So I think lecturers will look at the practicality of your project.
I
Yeah.
have is it a mini tip? Yeah, let me call it a mini tip for that one. But again, I'm going to use my undergraduate experience, because my master's experience has not been very excellent with my project. But yeah, I'll use my undergraduate experience like a mini tip. I think what worked for me for my undergraduate is after you get your supervisor, because I don't know if that is how it still works. Sorry, my knowledge might be a bit outdated, but I'll talk about. Oh my god, my age is showing. Anyway, so you'd be paired with a lecturer. And then what happens
Yeah.
is, what really worked for me is I became a nuisance to that lecturer. Every day I would be at the office. He was called Dr. Ndunda.
Mm-hmm.
I would be there every time I update my objective for my project. I am there. Hi, Dr. Ndunda. I've updated. Do you mind reviewing these objectives? I'd go to the next step, background
Mm-hmm.
information. As soon as I write that, when it is just
Mm-hmm.
done, immediately, and we got to a point where the communication was really seamless and he was very supportive. It got to a point where we even transitioned to emails. So it'd just be like, oh, just when you update your paper, just send it on email. I'll send it on email. He'd send it back with like comments on like, change this, edit this, this is outdated. And that really worked for me. When I look back, I'm really surprised
Mm-hmm.
that that is all I needed to do for me to
Mm-hmm.
finish my project, because it was a very seamless process. I know I used the word nuisance, but I was really in his face, being open and leaning in on things I
Mm-hmm.
do not know. Because I actually do not know. I'm doing my university life for the first time. I have never done this before. When I'm doing my project for the first time in my life. And so I really leaned into that. I really leaned into my weakness and just being like, oh, okay, I've done this part. Do you mind reviewing it? And just being polite about it, be respectful
Mm-hmm.
about it, respect his time. When he gives you feedback, don't go MIA on a lecturer. For me, that's what really worked. Like I made my supervisor my friend. Like by
Yeah.
the time we were finishing that paper, I was like, ah, yeah, me, I can't believe I've finished, and everyone else is struggling around me. I'm just like, I don't understand what's so hard, guys. I really don't. Okay, I don't know if this tip still works because it might be updated like a research paper, but that really worked for me. Like that worked for me. Go after your lecturer. Someone can try that, and hopefully it works. If it works, please DM me, whoever is listening.
Actually, we are also encouraged to do the same thing right now. Lecturers are like, don't go quiet with your project because definitely you don't even know what you're doing. Like, I'm your supervisor for a reason. I'm here for you. Like, come to me if you need anything. Otherwise, utaumia. Yeah, so for your project, just be extroverted. Just talk to your supervisor. I mean, it's just the two of you. Just build that healthy communication between you and your lecturer. Yeah.
That's the end of the episode, guys. Please chime in on the conversation. We'd love to hear from you on what works for you, on some of the things, all the things actually that Nollyn has talked about. I think she's given us an entire campus experience from her perspective. And so yeah, feel free to chime in. Let us know what you think. Even for projects, let us know tips that have worked for you to get your projects approved. Just in addition to what Nollyn and I have shared on here. Nollyn, is there anything else?
No, I think that's it for now.
Thank you guys. Until next time, that's bye from me. Bye. Bye people, bye.
Bye. Bye, guys.